Imagine you're in an art museum. Imagine its plain walls that carry the quiet echoes of people whom you are sure are judging you based on how long you stand in front of each work of art. Just me? Okay. You see a piece that captures your attention, but there is so little information available on it that you can't imagine it being anywhere else besides right here. You may not be able to see it in its original context, or even know what that context may be. But the good news is you're not alone, and we live in the age of the internet where you can research the artists, mediums, and periods that interest you. So if you can tear yourself away from the dumpster fire that is Twitter for even a few minutes, I highly encourage you to. But you might not. But I did. So here's what I learned about the Madonna and Child of the Luca Della Robbia workshop at Philbrook. Now, before we begin, it is important to note why I say workshop of the artist rather than the artist himself. In the Italian Renaissance, workshops were home to a principal artist with several assistants creating art under their supervision. The Madonna and Child is most likely accredited to the Della Robbia workshop because of its highly specific medium. In 15th century Italy, the Della Robbia workshop had a near monopoly on tin-glazed terracotta because of their closely guarded recipe. The medium, or the material the art is made from, was desirable for a number of reasons, including its durability, inexpensive costs compared to marble or bronze, and quick production. Finally, the medium was valued for the ideal balance it maintained. As popularized by the Dominican Fra Giovanni de' Medici, the church urged that private devotional objects be made from inexpensive mediums so that the materials would not overshadow the piety of the owner. However, while terracotta was seen as a modest material, the glaze allowed for a balance between the expectation of simple forms and the desire for adornment. It is important to note that art, specifically religious art, was not simply seen as a display of personal taste, but a demonstration of their morality and piety. While the glaze seemingly sacrifices the naturalism of the figures because it cannot mimic flesh tones, it perfectly depicts the idealized moral purity of the Madonna and Child through the reflection of the shining white light of God. While we now know that ancient Greek and Roman sculpture was painted, 15th century Italians would have thought that these pristine white forms looked very classical. This minor detail demonstrates the importance of understanding a piece not only within its own historical context, but with the greater ideas of its own historical influences. So, we know about the medium, but where was this piece placed within the home? As devotion to the Virgin Mary as both the human mother of Christ and a divine being reached its peak in the 14th through 16th centuries, so too did the demand for images of the Madonna and Child. Devotion to Mary was specifically important to women, as she represented both their spiritual ideal and their societal role model as a wife and mother. Because of this dual importance, images of the Madonna and Child were recommended for every Italian household, even emphasizing their placement in the bedroom. It is also during this time period that we see a crucial divide in the art of the Virgin and Child. One style emphasizes the two figures as detached divine entities, as seen here in Lorenzo Manco's Madonna and Child. In contrast, the Della Robbia Madonna and Child depict the two figures as a closely bonded mother and child. This appears to be a private moment between the pair, as it exhibits far more attention to the tender emotions of the scene as the two maintain eye contact. Mary keeps a protective hold of her child's bottom as Christ clutches at her veil playfully, drawing our eye back to the devoted mother. These choices make sense when we remember that this piece was kept in the home, as it reflects the comforts of domesticity and the tender emotions the mothers of the 15th century Italian homes felt towards their own children. While we have a slight theory into the placement of the object, much of its original context, such as its original frame, remain lost. The Crest Foundation says that this could be the original frame, to which I respectfully disagree. While original Luca Della Robbia frames are difficult to find, original frames of his student and nephew Andrea Della Robbia gives us insight into Luca's work as he studied beneath him. The Virgin and angels adoring the Christ Child's frame accredited to Andrea's work is a stark contrast to the Madonna and Child's current gilt wooden frame. And if that isn't enough to convince you, the current frame isn't even flush with a sculpture's edge, so I'll let you decide. Now, I'm sure by this point you're wondering, why should I care? Well, for me at least, deeply understanding a piece of art is when it seems most alive. Now, don't get me wrong, I love museums and they do incredible work to conserve the art and present it to the public. But I think we sometimes forget that these pieces once had a life of their own, that they belonged to an average person and brought meaning and beauty to their lives. The liveliness of this art can still remain if we only have the patience to look for it.